fact that the zone committees were here half an hour ago, and I did think that we would have made further progress on the community boards by now. So we've got two community boards to go. So I'm just wondering, Linwood and Coastal Burwood, are you okay to, if I do the zone committees first, or? Yep. Okay. All right. So could I invite the zone committees to come forward for their quarterly report, quarterly update?
She's just going to whisper in my ear.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll just leave it to you in terms of whatever order you want to present in.
Kia ora tātou, ko Arapata Ruben tōku ingoa, Chair of the Christchurch West Melton Water Zone Committee. Thank you very much for allowing us to come here today and just give a brief report back on events over the last 3 months. I understand what November, December agendas are like, so I'll keep this very brief. As per the report, one of the key things that we've managed to participate in the last 3 months was our Meet in the Middle on the Avon o Tākaro. It was initiated by Evan Smith and his group. It was very well attended. There was approximately 2,000 people participated, and probably half as many again of dogs and cats. It was really, from all accounts, it was a great community day and a good opportunity for the community to actually meet the zone committee. And one of the feedback from the zone committee was that very few people realised that there was a zone committee in the area. So it kind of made us realise that we actually need to get our profile up and just really put it out there to people what's actually being achieved through the zone committee. I'm not sure if Shelley wants to stand up, but we've got working on a superhero stormwater concept. So all the zone committee members were wearing these t-shirts.
Yeah.
There was a request from me to wear mine today, but the sizing wasn't quite right. And that was before it went in the wash. But yeah, so taking on board, one of the key things that we've identified is how do we engage with communities, with individuals, how do we enable them to participate in water issues in Christchurch, and also how do we to create these connected communities. So we've jumped on the stormwater superhero concept. My 8-year-old, he took that t-shirt off me, put it on, and he started and diving on the sofa. And I says to him, well, you actually got to get your own. You actually have to go out there and do some work on the waterways. So, and he says, when? Where do I go? So that's the kind of thing we're looking at building on. Also, working in partnership with all the different stakeholders. We as a subcommittee of ECAN and Christchurch City Council, we can't do it alone. We very much only make recommendations to the committee, and plus we lack true resources to be able to do a lot within the zone committee. I'm not sure if we're going to talk about the money later, but so it's around how do we get all these other stakeholders, Fish and Game, Department of Conservation, the various councils around the table, and look at pooling all our resources together so we can do a lot more, a lot quicker. We can't do it as 13 community representatives at a table. One of the other things, so we talked about engagement. We had our refresher course 2 weeks ago. We had 15 applications for 3 positions. That's the most we've ever had in 6 years we've been running. Skills, there was a very big range of skills. There was a lot of technical experience on the applicants, but also we had a lot that were engaging with their communities, and others were strengths were around communication. So we've selected 3 names, and we're hoping that it makes your December agenda, but fingers crossed. We'd also like to thank Christchurch City Council for the work that they did in realigning the roads down Marston's Road when they discovered the Kanakana. My only concern was that it went public in the press, and now a lot of Māoris know where they are. And that kind of ties in with one of the other issues that we've had over the recent years on the zone committee was the amount of work or resources that we've contributed to whakainanga. It's a really great project, but we still allow people to whitebait. It's a critically endangered species, or an endangered species at risk. We're pouring resources into growing their habitat, growing the numbers, but people are still allowed to fish them. It kind of doesn't make sense. So we're looking at ways of putting in protection measures to enhance their population much quicker. And just one last thing, I noted on the ITI committee papers the other day around rainwater collection and repurposing grey water. I think that's a really brave step, and I'm really, really excited and looking forward to some of the outcomes from that workshop. I did have thoughts about inviting the chair of the zone committee along, but I'll leave that for you because I know there was community boards and etc. But yeah, I'm just wondering later at what time will you bring other stakeholders and industries, that sort of stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that's enough for me for now. Kia ora.
Yep.
Infrastructure, Transport and Environment Committee, you'd be most welcome.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. We have to collaborate and work together. Yeah.
Thank you. Are we going to hear from all of them, or do you want to just go through each?
Just go.
Okay. Then Aaron, Yanni.
Just with regards to the whitebait,
Yeah.
you know, there are like real issues now with people flying down from Auckland. I've been talking to some people on the coast, buying directly, then taking it back up because there are no restrictions. Mm-hmm. Do you think, if we combine together to look at some kind of licensing, because at the moment it is tax free. There are no limits, so it's you're saying without question it is a resource that's being exhausted, and people are going to turn around one day and it's going to be gone. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? Because you know you've got ECAN, you've got your
so the zone committee don't have a stand on it licensing. Personally, I think it's very much like your water takes. There does need to be a license.
Yep.
How we create that's something you have to talk with MPI, get them around the table. There's other options. There's a couple of other options. Department of Conservation could enact one. The local runanga could put a rahui on it for 4 or 5 years. You know, there's various options, but we just need to get around the table and have those discussions.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheers. Sorry, Dave.
No, that's all right. Aaron and then Yanni.
Yeah, mine's obviously whitebait as well. So would you guys look for us as a council to potentially be looking to work with other councils across Canterbury to maybe even have a moratorium on whitebait taking for either 1, 2, 3, whatever the number of the years are that we need while the work's been done and they rebuild their population? Something along those lines?
On my past experiences, when you start bringing others in, you got other ideas. Yeah, I find it easier working as one council. You've got if you've got a shared vision around the table, then you've then got to look at others with that same vision. Some right. may not; they may have different kaupapa down there. Yeah, but it could be something that would be worked on amongst others. Waimakariri, you may have trouble.
Yeah, certainly. It could be something with the mayor raising it in the mayoral forum or something around that. I don't know. I don't want to see us lose the whitebait, that's all.
Yeah, no, nor do I, but I also know that we've got more rivers in the Canterbury area than the ones that impact on our...
Yeah, but that's why it need to be wide, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know what the issues are with the other rivers, that's all. Isn't there a joint? Aren't you part of a group that... Yeah, the regional one. So would it be appropriate to raise it there? Yeah.
That's on the regional committees. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be. Because I noticed I've got longfin tuna on there, which is just as at risk as your whitebait.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yanni.
Thank you. I just wanted to know what informational work you've been doing around the sediment coming down post the fires, because when you look at the Hefka, it just seems full of sediment, and it seems even worse since the fires. So is there anything you can just let us know about the monitoring and what proactive work is happening in that space?
So the Cashmere Stream Working Group and the community groups have been out there doing clarity testing. They just had a workshop last Saturday, actually, inviting more community members, training them up in how to do that clarity. It's hard to measure whether we've improved or not because of the fire. The fire's just added a whole new mix to the waterways. We knew what was happening before it. We'd done all these trials with EOS on the Port Hills around sediment controlling. The modelling showed that it would make a difference, but with the loss of the landscape up there now, the ground cover, it's just exasperated, the issues around the Heathcote Cashmere. I'm not really a technical person. I read it, I hear it, but yeah, I leave it to them, yeah. I understand the council has a lot of long-term plans in place. Remembering that we're only a subcommittee of the council, we've made recommendations in the past. They've been acted on. The sedimentation process, policy and processes around that for contractors. My understanding is there's been a number of measures have been identified. I haven't had an update from council staff yet on them. Yeah.
In terms of the overall health, the quality of the Heathcote, is there anything at a high level you can give us any information about what it's showing and where it's trending?
Not with the recent floods again. It just throws out all those matrices we've received over the last 2 years. Different parts of the Heathcote have different issues, not all the same and not all the same levels. There's parts of the Heathcote that are in reasonable condition, and then there's others that are a lot worse with individual ones. Yep.
Phil?
Thank you. Just another question, sort of in relation particularly to the Heathcote, but the Avon as well. Just with besides the support that ECAN provide to zone committees, you'll be aware we council have a community water partnership, and which has some funding and a wide range of community groups. So is that perhaps a way that we as a council could support, for example, rejuvenation of some of the riverbanks and particularly parts of the Port Hills? Yes. So we support the range of groups who are already involved in doing that.
Okay, it's actually quite interesting, these questions. It's really good, and I'm just wondering now if those meetings that you were having between the two councils late last year are still happening with senior staff and that and management. Are they still happening? Because I'm now wondering why you are asking chair of the zone committee. It tells me that you haven't been talking to one another.
My question was really, would you support that concept and support us?
We supported it right from the get-go from last year. I think it was actually our conversations that brought the two councils together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. I don't know, is it Alan or Paula next?
Yeah, I'll go for that.
Thanks, Alan.
Good afternoon, Leanne and councillors. So I've just got 3 things to cover off today. I'll just do that quickly. One is that I guess at the start of the year you probably know that the Selwyn at Coast Ford went dry, but now it's the complete opposite. You know, there's been so much water going through there. It's not funny. And the Selwyn has actually joined up as well in the middle, which it doesn't do very often. It has been joined up ever since July, so it's been flowing non-stop since July because of the wet winter. We went through there just a couple of days ago, on a field trip, and I think it's starting to dry up again at Highway 1, and so it'll probably stop flowing again. Maybe not at Coast Ford, but it'll break into 2 rivers again. So that's one. The second one is that I think last time there was a report on the seminar series that we did to try to connect with the people and the community, and so that went really, really well. We had probably about 70 to 130 people per session. So we had 2 sessions each day, and 7 sessions all up, or 7 days altogether. So 14 sessions all up, and we also had a couple of thousand people kind of look at the seminars on YouTube. So all in all, it's actually quite successful, but it hasn't reached as many people as we'd like. And so the next thing that we kind of embarked on is actually another initiative to try and engage with people that don't normally, are not normally interested in water management. And so we came up with a giant pumpkin growing competition just to kind of lure people into into doing something, and then we'll have an opportunity to engage with them. And we also invited a few people, reasonably high-profile people, to try to get them to come to the table to discuss all these things. So it's a flow-on from what Arapata was saying before about community engagement. We see that it's been quite important, and that's the common theme that's actually come through from the seminar series and also from other zone committees. So it's that's it really, I think.
Good. Does anyone have any questions for Alan?
I'll just add one more thing. So the idea behind it, the pumpkin competitions too, is that this year we're just doing a trial run. Next year we could actually extend it out and get a bit bigger. That also has the possibility of raising money for the zone committees, which is kind of what we've been talking about as well. We just don't have the resources to make things happen, and we rely on NECAN backing the projects that we decide on.
And did I note that you've got? Oh no, you've done that public. You've got a Waihora Trust are holding a Living Lake Symposium on the 10th of November.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So the Living Lakes seminar, that's this Friday actually, this Thursday, Friday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it'd be good if
somebody could go to that. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, right. So, questions. Right. Okay. On to Paula. Kia ora,
Hello.
welcome.
Yep, cool. So there's 3 paragraphs on page 191 that I'm speaking to, and I'll just start at the end, in a way, responding to a couple of things that come up on previous briefings, on previous presentations. First was, and you'll see in paragraph 3, about Te Roto o Wairewa, and we did discuss at a previous meeting about whether there was a need for a kind of a joint decision-making authority. We've had a bit of a discussion with Jan Cramwell, and I think there's a reluctance to do that at this stage. We already have a plan about what to do about Wairewa, and that is the ZIP addendum, which is the big chapter at the end of the ZIP that was produced later. And in that is set out the plan for improving the water quality in the lake. And until we've got some way down the track there's no point in getting into discussions about lake interventions. So that's following up on that. The other thing is about the monitoring at Ohinatahi on the following the fire. I think that was something you raised, Yanni. We made an inquiry there. As far as we know, there is no monitoring going on in this catchment in Whakaraupo. We've had advice from one of the landowners there, because there's been a couple of big slips up there and we were a bit concerned. She's saying that even now after rain the creeks that are running clear, so that's a good sign. And the other thing is that there were keki whale, which is what we are to call freshwater crayfish, locally anyway. They were there before the fire and they're still there, so that's a good sign, because we kind of take that as being a sort of indicator species of good ecological health. So those are just 2 things. The zone committee is also meeting with the community board and having a seminar very soon, and briefing, because I don't think there's been a conversation between the zone committee and the community board since the last election. So we're doing that on the 27th. And then finally, item number 1 is the long-term plan, and the zone committee have had a bit of a discussion about what we'd like to see in your long-term plan, and here is our budget wish list. Thank you very much. We're not very good at prioritising. We'll get better. But a couple of things I'd like to highlight there, and we will present this information to the community board too, but a couple of things I'd like to highlight there is it's about septic tanks on Banks Peninsula. There are a lot of small settlements on Banks Peninsula, and rural communities where the main wastewater treatment system is septic tanks. But we don't really know how many there are on Banks Peninsula. We don't know whether they're working generally okay, and we really have no idea whether they are having any adverse effect on our water bodies. And so this is a proposal for a project to do some investigation work and maybe come up with some, find out what's going on basically in the first instance. And so that would be one that we would want to support. And then the other thing is just one of those little small things that has a significance way beyond its relevance. But that is about, I'm turned over now on the back of page 1 where it talks about under Wairau Zip chapter 6. It talks about a little bit of Esplanade Reserve in the Okuti Valley. Now, we recently had an application for immediate steps funding from a community group in the Okuti Valley who are taking on that particular stream, which is a biodiversity hotspot, and they are looking at having a kind of community monitoring and enhancement thing. Every time we go to Okuti, they raise it with us. The council owns a strip of Esplanade Reserve in that valley, opposite the community centre, and the cattle from the neighbouring property can get to the water there, and there's no fence on the Esplanade Reserve to stop that happening. So the council is the landlord there, and so I was just wondering whether there was any chance that some money could be found to complete that little fence. So, any questions?
Right, questions? Sarah? Phil?
Thank you, and thank you for the wish list. It's really useful, and the first time I've gone through a long-term plan with the regional committee, do the zone committees put in a wish list with ECAN, or do the zone committees just have their pot of money each and have to work within that budget?
We have made a wish list for the regional committee, for the regional council, as well.
Yeah.
The zone committee doesn't get any funding at all, but we do have the immediate steps fund to allocate. Right. So we make the decisions on that.
And it's been clear from each of the presentations today that the zone committees would like to do more than they're currently able to with their current resourcing. Are you asking for the immediate steps fund to be increased? And is that something that you're able to do through the process? And would it be helpful if I was to raise that at the regional committee meeting?
At our last meeting, we had the first occasion where we were oversubscribed for that fund, and we've already spent our whole year's budget, only a third of the year in, because we had so many fantastic projects. Yeah. And what that means is, yes, we probably could use on Banks Peninsula. Up until now, we haven't had enough applications almost to allocate the funding, but clearly people have got on board, and now it looks like it's going to become quite competitive. Yeah. So, it would be good to have some more money. Yeah.
Is that the ECAN budget?
The immediate
I don't know whose budget the immediate steps comes out of. I suppose it's
budget, the immediate steps stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Phil?
Thanks, Paula. Walking over the peninsula the other day was an eye-opener for me, but I just wondered in terms of the zone committee's involvement. For example, when there's been the issue of slumping in some of the gullies, that are well known, are the zone committees able to inform council of some sort of urgency, whether it's an urgent one, or some recommendations around prioritisation of fixing any of those? Is that an area that you can have some contribution to?
Well, Pam might like to talk to this too, but we recently had a situation at Onuku, where there's a whole catchment that is fully forested upstream from the marae there, and there was a big slip in there even though it was fully forested. And I think we got to accept to a certain extent some land mass movement is normal on these steep hills with this soil type, but certainly, I think the area that the council could have the most impact is in how its own road corridor is managed. I think in some cases the work that the council maintenance people do, or the way the roads are managed actually contributes to the problem. And I don't know whether you want to speak to that a bit. Pam, go.
I'll take that opportunity. Look, I think that this shows the importance of actually closely working with the community board. And I am, I'm on the community board and I'm on the zone committee. So have a bit of a better networking or liaison relationship between what's going on. So we had a seminar recently where we looked at the slips on Banks Peninsula, some of those large ones. There's quite a number of them, and there's some that are being still done under emergency work that are going to cost considerable amount of money. And part of that was that we did actually ask for that. We actually looked at the upper side of that road and what contributed to that huge slip, and whether it's something that we as a landowner could perhaps help with resolving that. Yes, it's there are things that will always happen. What's up the top does come down to the bottom, and yes, there needs to be. We need to continue ongoing conversations with our communities to encourage them to do things and to look at what they can do, as well as the council working with us to do it, and the council doing its bit too.
And so I think that information coming back from the board to for example, the ITI committee. And it's Pauline's not here, but I think having that link sounds to me to be important.
Mm. Were you thinking of a particular slip that you've seen?
There was one near the Takamatua beach, which I was interested in.
Oh, right. Have you seen the one at Church Bay where the road's just fallen away and taken the garage with it?
I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two that are emergency ones that are being done under emergency funding before Christmas, and then there's about 16 others, I think it was, that are on a list that need to be repaired down the track.
Okay.
A number of them need quite significant work to resolve them.
Every time we have one of these weather events, the council, ends up spending over $1 million repairing the roads on Banks Peninsula, and they keep doing it again and again, And this last year, I think there've been two that have been $3 and $2 million worth of damage, and I think you get some funding from NZTA to do that, but it does raise the question about how you can make the network more resilient, and I think we've got to really address that now.
Yep. Thank you.
Right. So, Yanni.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to check on the Akuti. Did you say that the person's got stock on council land that's not fenced off to the waterways?
Mm. It's just the adjacent landowner, and there's little bits of Esplanade Reserve all over Banks Peninsula on most of the rivers, and the council, they've never been fenced, and they just incorporated into the adjacent management of the adjacent land. But I just think for the council, it's actually a bad look.
Well, we agree. I agree strongly, and I think this is about the second or third time that we've been told this, and I thought previously we had actually asked for work to be done around that. So I don't know whether we can.
I just really, don't want to have one of these conversations, please.
Okay.
We've taken on board that we've received these recommendations, but we have had this one and the other one on the other side both specifically highlighted. I know that Mary Richardson came over and took the sheet away and has noted that, so we'll be coming back with a report on how we progress this, but we may not need to wait till the long-term plan. You're right.
Yep. Good to hear.
Can we just get a report on stock on council land not being fenced, because I would feel really bad if we were doing that on council land and blasting farmers who are doing it and polluting rivers.
It doesn't pass the front page test, that one, does it?
It doesn't. So
we'd be interested to see that report, but I think you maybe should narrow it down if you don't want a generalised one, and just talk about the Esplanade Reserves in particular, because those reserves are set aside specifically to protect the waterways.
Sure. So the Esplanade Reserves, and it was Akuti, was it?
Yes, but they're all over the place too.
Okay.
No, there's not many.
I wonder if we could just get a report on that, because it's not long-term
plan,
plan, it's just leasing.
So who would do that? Well, why don't we just have you move that, and so we've got a resolution in front of us that that we request a report on
Esplanade.
Those areas of unfenced Esplanade Reserve that
are being used for stock.
That are being where the adjacent land is being used to graze stock.
It might be just better to say riparian area, because they won't be all Esplanade Reserves.
No, they won't, but I'm just thinking that broadens the thing out. It might be good to start with.
Why don't we start with Esplanade and then we'll move on to the others if we find
keep it narrow at this stage and broaden it out.
Andrew
To
would like
grey
to
stock.
second it.
Yeah. No, raise stock. I think we should raise stock. Okay, so we've got a recommendation here where we received the information, the Zone Committee's update reports. We request a report on those areas of unfenced Esplanade Reserve where the adjacent land is being used to graze. It was graze. I was just joking because RAZE means burn to the ground, you know, sort of. Anyway, it was anyway. So, would someone like to move that? Andrew, seconded. Phil. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.